Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel. This is Business Connections Live with Steve Hyland.
Hello there, welcome along. This is Business Connections Live, the program for entrepreneurs, SMEs and business owners. Now on today's show we're going to be discussing and understanding the customer journey. Joining me in the studio is Matthew Ruddle. He's a director from In Touch. An interesting program today because we've talked about autoresponders in the past. We're taking that one step further actually, because you can have all the tools. We often say here, you can have all the gear, but no idea. You can have all the tools, but if you don't use them, they're going to have no effect. But what should you be doing as well? What is the customer journey in your organization from the moment you capture a customer or a prospect all the way through to retaining them at the end of the whole process and then reselling to them again? Because once you've captured them, that's the expensive bit done. Now you've really got to capitalize on that. Matthew, it's lovely to have you in the studio. It's a long time. Last time we spoke, it was down the end of a piece of wire, and you were sitting in your Weston-super-Mare offices.
In the back cave, yeah.
In the back cave, and it was all dark, and it's lovely to have you in the studio today.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let's talk a little bit about In Touch CRM first of all. There are a host of automation and sales pipeline pieces of software out there. I know it's not the tool that's important, but yours is a great tool, In Touch CRM. So tell us a little bit about you and CRM.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the company's been going for 12 odd years, so we're probably one of the best kept secrets. Yet we've got customers all around the world. And we basically provide people with everything from CRM, email marketing, automation, leads and sales. So we're almost the one-stop shop for what you actually need to run a business, because we all go out and collect data. We all pick up business cards left, right and centre. But where do you store them? Well, in a CRM system. But then what do you do? Well, then you want to email them. So we've got that on there as well. Then you want to track your sales and everything like that as well. So it is the one-stop shop for everything you need for business, really.
You're going around, you're doing a lot of talking to small businesses and medium-sized businesses. What do you think the biggest issue that they have when they see this? Are we in a state of that? Is the mentality of small business that you go out and it's order per order?
Yeah, you do see a lot of businesses that live very hand to mouth, and generally why that is because they don't have processes in place. Because everybody talks about doing lead generation, the top of the funnel stuff. If you want more business, go out and generate more leads. But what they don't tell you is the fact that it's unfortunately not gravity fed.
Now that's a great expression. Explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, you know what? I'm actually nicking that from a friend of mine, Stephen Thomas, who wrote the book Instant Networking, because you don't put things in at the top and then just wait and miraculously you get sales and money at the bottom. If you actually flip it on its side, it means you actually have to do something to draw people through your process. And with so much competition out there these days, let's face it, being honest, we're not the only CRM system on the block, but there's so much competition out there for your money, your time, that you have to stand out from the crowd. You have to do something to engage with your potential customers. So therefore, you can't just sit and hope that these things happen. You have to draw people along, and that's where things like automation and processes are absolutely key, because it means that your sales become predictable. It means that whatever you do becomes measurable. Because at the end of the day, what's the point of putting something in place if it's not measurable? You don't know if it's working, you don't know if it's not working. All you know is that you've got the odd sale at the end of it, but does that cover your wages, your team's wages, your bills at the end of the month, your bills to HMRC and things like that? And then it's about having the flip side as well, so having the automation or having the processes to be able to engage with those customers again, because you spent all that time and effort trying to win their business, that it'd be a shame if you just dropped off the radar once you had won that business. And I kind of compare it to the revolving doors. You get the customer in and all of a sudden they go straight back out because of the fact that you haven't engaged with them, you haven't communicated with them, and being honest, it's your responsibility as a business owner to remind them that you're still there and the services that you offer. But people fall down because they don't have either of those processes in place.
Do you think that people get the tool, the CRM system, the customer relationship management tool, and they have that. Is there a business where that is just too much for? Are there businesses where it's not suitable to have something like that?
We used to say that. We used to say, well,
I'm too small to have one of those. We
used to say a funeral home didn't need it because repeat customers. But we have picked some of those up because again, it's about communicating, and when things happen, it's about communicating. And I think it's applicable for all businesses. Every business needs to communicate, because otherwise, how do people know you're actually in business if you don't actually tell people you're in business? So, and again, it's your responsibility to do that, and sing your praises as well. So tell people why they should be coming to you.
When you stand up and you do your presentation, because you talk about retention, customer retention, and when you are talking to them, do businesses actually have any strategy in place, do you think, in the main? If you had to split it down in a percentage-wise, are the successful ones the ones that got some form of a process?
Yes.
And the unsuccessful ones are the ones that don't?
The ones that are struggling to keep their head above water is because they're looking at the front end, they're looking at sales. But when you kind of look at it and go, that one customer has cost you 6 to 7 times more than it would to actually do more business with existing customers, all of a sudden it takes the shine off winning new business. And it's because you're always chasing that win, you're always chasing that feel-good factor, and let's face it, who doesn't like winning new business? It's like scoring the winning goal in the World Cup or something like that. It's the endorphins, the adrenaline, and then what? Doing more business with existing customers doesn't quite have that same release, but actually it could be potentially 25% more profitable. So therefore, having something in place, and as I said, that's where people are struggling, is that they're always chasing their tail, they're always chasing that new business, but actually winning more business from existing customers could actually then see them get their head not above water, but actually into a boat and safety and as well. So
a lot of analogies going on here. Is there a very simple process that you can say to people? I mean, what is the norm that's going to be successful? Is it a case that if you go to a network, we were talking about this before we started, you go to a networking meeting, and the problem with networking, a lot of people say it doesn't work, is because they do no work after the networking event. They're in the room, then they leave the room, and that's the end of it. So is there, in your mind's eye, are you thinking of a process all the time, and what would be a typical process?
Processes don't have to be complicated. The whole journey doesn't have to be that complicated. So for networking, for instance, just start drip feeding something to those people every week, because if you do something like for networking where you can move around, and so therefore you may not see the same people week in, week out, you still need to communicate with them. So just having that step by step, here's some information about us, here's some information, and just drip feeding them that once a week or even once every other week, that's as complicated as it needs to be. Because, again, you said about the analogies, marketing is like a boxing match at the end of the day. You can waste all your time and effort going to win that big sale, first of all, but actually it's the little jabs, it's being there throughout the fight, means that you're in with a chance of actually winning. But because people don't communicate, they're out of the fight before they've even begun.
Are we going to have back-to-back sports analogies now?
We might do.
All the way through. Let's just see how many we can actually get down there then. Now, you've got a process that you use yourself, and I think this is just a great example for people. Now, if you've ever gone to a networking event, you're thinking to yourself, do you know what? You pick up the card, and of course we've had all this trouble with GDPR and all the rest of it. It's business to business. You can get on with it. You can do it. So don't worry about it. You're not going to go off and do things that are wrong with it. It's business to business, legitimate. You can approach these people. Ask yourself the question: how often do you actually go back? You get the handful of cards. What do you do with them then? Now, you have a process. Do you mind sharing your process with us?
Steve, you get me to give away all my tools.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's incredibly simple. So I have a form on my phone, because we all have our mobile phones at networking meetings. So I pick up the business cards and I put them straight into my phone, into this form, that then puts them straight into my system, that then sends somebody an email 2 hours afterwards, that says, hey, great to meet you earlier. Tell me more about your business and the customers that you're looking for. Because again, that's one of the keys of networking, is being open to helping other people. So I asked them about that. Then maybe a day or 2 days later, they get a video from me, which is my 3 networking tips. Then a few days later they get another bit of content, and so forth and so forth. So I'm not trying to sell to them, I'm trying to engage with them in terms of sharing content that I've created that might help them with their network. But again, it goes to show them about having processes in place, that I haven't just left that meeting, picked up the business card and put it in the drawer with all the other ones and hoped that some business will grow out of it. I've actually started to engage with them whilst I'm off doing other things in life as well.
If we're being realistic about this, and we are going to get onto the whole process of retention in just a moment, of the people that go to networking events, what do you think of, what kind of percentage do you think of people do nothing?
You know, I'm probably going to be a bit controversial here and say there's a lot of people that do that.
Yeah, but go, give me a percentage.
A percentage?
80%?
I'd
90%?
probably be a bit more diplomatic of going probably 75%.
75%?
Don't do anything. Because there's loads of people that I've met that I've never had another conversation with until I've gone back to that group. And then it's remembering who they are. I might have gone back 6 months later. There's somebody I met the other day that I haven't seen in a networking event for 4 years. And I haven't spoken to them in between that time. Or they haven't spoken to me.
So just, is that you making mistakes too? Is that...
You know what? Nobody's perfect. So again, a lot of this is a learning experience. So, you know, using all the things that I've learned working with clients over the years to actually implement things that have actually made a difference. And again, it doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be that simple process that you put in place to help you communicate. And that's key.
Right, we're going to be talking, that's what we're talking about today. We're going to be looking at the whole process from sale to retention, understanding what the customer journey is. I suppose the other thing that we've all got to consider as well is, what does the customer think of the journey that they are undertaking? Sometimes it's all about us and it's not about them. You know, me, not you. And we've got to sort of work that little bit out as well. And what are the processes, what are the things you should be thinking about, and what are the tools? So we're going to be looking at consistent sales success, the increasing customer retention, more time, more money, we like those ones, and true business growth. And why it's important to take a step back and spend time in your business and not just in your business. All to come on this edition of Business Connections Live. My guest is Matthew Ruddle. He is Director from InTouch CRM. Well, great to have your company as always. We're live here on a Monday. By the way, if you want to leave a comment or anything like that, if you've got a question for Matthew for that matter, you can leave that on YouTube. You can go onto the YouTube channel and just leave a question while the program is going out. If you want, you can also tweet it as well, and we'll get that question to Matthew as well. Let's go back a week. Last week we were talking about slide presentation. The slide presentation man was with me, David Henson. He was looking at the top tips for slide presentation. Do you just put too many words? What were the things he said you shouldn't be doing? You shouldn't be using cliche graphics and bullet points. Bullet points are bad things as far as he's concerned. Need to be a little bit more imaginative. You've got to remember that your slides are visual aids to what you're saying. They are not the presentation themselves. A lot of people tend to use PowerPoint, Keynote and the other presentation pieces of software. They tend to use that as the script nearly to their presentation. It's the wrong way to be doing it. And you can learn a lot of lessons from last week's program when it comes to the design of your particular slides. It was a good show last week with David Henson, the presentation man. Just to give you a bit of a reminder, here's what happened on last week's edition of Business Connections Live. Do your slides suck? Are they useless? Do you leave your audience sitting in abject boredom throughout the course of the entire presentation? Do you lose their interest so they're not listening to you anymore? Have you ever said the phrase, you may not be able to read this because there's so much content on your slide? We're joined today by an absolute expert who's going to get down to the nitty-gritty. He's going to ask the question. His name is Dave Henson. He is the slide presentation man.
That people just fill their slides with their talk. As we all know, we've all sat in the audience before when you're just reading text off of a screen. If they're doing the job, you might as well just say, here are my slides, I'm going to go and sit down and have a cup of tea, you just read them. That's what most people do these days. They don't even need to be on the stage. I think what they do is someone says to them, right, Fred, you've got to give a presentation. And they think, great, no problem, get the laptop open. And they just start typing away in PowerPoint or Keynote, just spewing out words onto the slides without really giving any thought as to what they're going to say. So obviously the biggest mistake, as we've said, is putting too much text or putting text on the slide in the first place. Now, there's one important point. Some people say to me, and I hear this a lot, they say, but Dave, I need my slides as a prompt, which is obviously not the way you should be looking at slides. But I say, do you know what, if you want to use your slides as a prompt, there's absolutely no problem with that. Just do one really simple and important thing: unplug the projector. If you watch the news, there are times when the newscaster is on the screen by him or herself, just talking to you, the audience, no visuals in the background. And there are times when it's supported with either graphics or, of course, moving footage. So we need to look at the same thing. I've got an acronym which is RICE, R-I-C-E, which stands for Reinforce, Illustrate, Clarify, Explain. The attention goes from the speaker to the slides, from the slides to the speaker. If you turn the slides off, the attention goes back onto the speaker. And your slides need to be as professional as you are as a speaker. Yeah, I think so. I think images is there's 3 points about images. The first thing is that that if you're using images, then it automatically cuts down the amount of room you've got on the slide for text, which is a win, because I'm always saying to people, aim towards 0 bullet points. Doesn't mean you shouldn't use text at all, but it means if you can, these bullets that come up, little round bullets and text coming across. Try to avoid that. First of all, there are things that you should avoid with images as well, and the first thing you need to avoid is the cliched images, because they're the kind of visual equivalent of bullet points. If you use a colour palette, the audience might not notice, but if you don't and you use a whole mishmash of colours, the audience might know. The audience is more likely to notice when something's wrong than when something's right. I tell you what, if you are looking for fonts to use, look on Google Fonts. They're all accessible. They're all free to download. They're great. There's a lot of fonts now that have become old-fashioned in that they've been around for a long while. I am David Henson. I am the slide presentation man. I've been working with slides now for 32 years, on and off, from the old 35mm slides in the old days right up to the modern graphics with PowerPoint and so on. It's really important that your slides reflect your message, that they're congruent with what you're saying on stage, and that they don't clash with what you're saying. In other words, don't put your script on your slides. Make sure that they reflect what you're trying to say. There's nothing wrong also with going blank, not you personally, but on your slides. So if there's a part of your presentation where you don't need to use slides, turn off. Just go black, and then the audience will concentrate on you again. In terms of what you need to know to produce slides, obviously you need to know how to use things like PowerPoint or Keynote or Prezi or whatever tool you want to use. They're all tools, by the way. I don't go in for all this kind of stuff about which one's better than the other. But also you need to know how to manipulate images, how to edit images, because images are a really important part of presenting. And I think that if you can learn how to edit images and produce good images, that's going to have a really good effect on what you produce. So yes, Dave Henson, slide presentation man. Good luck with your slide presentations.
David Henson there, and a very good programme it was indeed. He's written the book as well, Your Slides Suck. That was the name of the programme last week. If you want to get a copy of this, we did give a copy of it away. It's a great book. It's superb. It is available on Amazon. However, when I was speaking to David about it afterwards, he says if you buy the book directly from him, it comes on nicer paper, because they do this print on demand now with Amazon. So great book to read, some really good illustrations in there. The other thing that's really quite clever is on some of the key points, I don't know whether you can see this, but they put QR codes. You see just here. They put QR codes on the page, and that will direct you to a particular page on a website. And I think that's a great way of maybe connecting the written word in book form to something that's electronic online as well. Terrific show. If you get an opportunity, some great points in there. Do see it. David Henson, Do Your Slides Suck? That was last week's edition of Business Connections Live. Now, if you're thinking to yourself as well, what a great way of getting my message out there. Perhaps you're a business or something like that, and you'd like to be on the programme, then you can do that. It's that easy. All you got to do is contact us here at Business Connections Live. Just drop us an email to studio@businessconnectionslive.com, Or if you wish, you can pick the phone up. We're going to be talking about that in just a moment. Pick the phone up and let's have a bit of a chin wag, shall we? 01784 256 777 is our telephone number. You can have a word with either myself or the recently tanned Linda Bazant, just back from Tenerife. She had a lovely holiday out there. You can have a word with either of us, maybe share some of your holiday pictures as well, for that matter. If you want to, you can also follow our stream of consciousness at BCL Business TV on Twitter. You can watch the programmes each week and leave comments as well on Facebook. I've got one more breath to go, and you can also see over, well, nearly 400 hours of business programming at our main website at businessconnectionslive.com, and also there's information there as well when it comes to the media training that we do. Did you see the guy from Persimmons just recently? Did you see him, the brick manufacturer?
No.
He was questioned. He was asked about his £75 million bonus, and he refused to answer the question. He walked off camera. The share price tanked the following day. I think over 1 million people have watched him handle this particular moment, and he has since now resigned.
Poor bloke.
Poor bloke. My heart bleeds for him. What's he going to do with all that time and money?
Exactly.
Exactly. So there you go, £75 million. But he could have handled it very differently. One piece of advice to you right now, if you are worried about talking to the media, ask yourself this question: what is the most difficult, awkward question that somebody could ask me? And then have an answer for it. That's all you've got to do. If you do that, don't be going in there blind thinking, I'm going to go talk about this, when they may ask a question about that. Know your answer to that, because bet your bottom dollar they will be asking you. Anyway, you can find out all about our media training, which is accredited, incidentally, CPD accredited, so you can get continuing productivity development. You can get all of that. You just go to our website at businessconnectionslive.com. You're watching Business Connections Live. Joining me in the studio today is Matthew Ruddle. He is the director from InTouch CRM. They're a sales automation system. It's a UK-based company. Tell us a little bit about InTouch. How long, you said they've been going for 13 years. Nobody's heard about you except for all your customers who are very happy. It is a homegrown equivalent, effectively, to the likes of Infusionsoft and things like that, isn't it?
Yeah, we've been going for about 12, 13 years. We're based down in the southwest, and we've got developers in Coventry, or in and around Coventry. And we've kind of grown the business over the years. We've got a huge customer base that is incredibly varied, from huge sporting organisations right the way through to, say, one-man cleaning companies as well, because, you know, everybody needs a CRM system, everybody needs to communicate at the end of the day. And again, the levels that people use it do differ. You know, we've got some people that have loads of automation in there, and literally they just cream off the leads and they then convert them. And we've got some people that then manage their actual diaries and things like that for appointments. And
can I ask you, is that just a sales dream? Is that just something that all CRM manufacturers say, or all software manufacturers say? They say, we've got our CRM, you buy our CRM system, do a little bit of jiggery-pokery, and just sit back and watch the money roll in.
It's the utopia, but you know, as David just said in the clip, when he was talking about PowerPoints and things like that, you know, these are all tools. You know, InTouch is a tool. It's how you actually go about using it. You know, it's like buying the drill at Christmas and they're never actually using it. It has no value then. So it's what you actually implement and what you actually put in place. So, for instance, if you don't put a form on your website, you're not taking advantage of all that traffic you're pulling down. If you then don't have a sequence, or even just an email that fires off to say thank you, or even a task that encourages you to pick up the phone. I mean, these wonderful things called mobile phones, they're not just there for music and to take selfies. You can actually dial a number and speak to another human being. It's an amazing thing.
Blimey, I didn't realise that.
No,
really?
no. Yeah.
Is there an app for that?
Oh, to make a call, yeah.
To make a call?
Yeah.
It's probably the most underused app when it comes to business, isn't it?
It probably is. You know, we just want to FaceTime our family and friends these days, or we just want to, you know, take a selfie of what we're doing and what we're having for lunch. But
are your clients, when they sign up to you, when they start talking to you about using automation, are they using it as a way to escape the actual picking the phone up and making the call, the legwork. Is there a misunderstanding about really where automation, customer retention all fits in?
Yeah, I think there is an over-reliance on email sometimes. And I know that sounds a bit of a dodgy thing coming from a company that does email marketing. But again, the whole point of automation is that there are other steps in the process. There are things like tasks that encourage you to pick up the phone and speak to that person because they have done something. You're reacting to them clicking on a link, for instance, so you know that they're more receptive to having that conversation. Or even, send them a survey. Or send them something in the post. The post seems to be a forgotten instrument these days. I went networking down in Newton Abbot about a month or so ago, and in the post I got this big red box. And in this big red box, I'm not going to tell you what it is because it was sent to me by a guy called Carl Lehman, and it was fantastic. But on that same day, I had...
What a tease that is.
Exactly.
I'm not going to tell you what was in the box, but let me tell you, it was fantastic.
It was. You know what? Because I had two things that day. I had a brown envelope, which you look at it and you go, oh, that's HMRC. And then you have this big red box. And I don't want to spoil it for him, but there was a DVD, a book, and something else in there. And it was fantastic, because even my wife wanted to know what was in it.
Well, so I want to know what's in it now.
I'll tell you off camera. But it was fantastic. But you know what? That's part of his process. He's picked up my business card, he's had a conversation with me, he's then put something into action. He's sent me an email, he's then sent me this box. So the next thing is to pick up the phone and speak to me.
But the point about it is that here we are talking about it.
Totally. It's a conversation starter.
And that's what makes it so important, and that's the difference, isn't it? How do you get your customers talking about you remotely? What about the telephone call thing? I know you said that you see that as a task. How important do you think picking the phone up and making that call is?
You know what? It's vitally important, and again, it's like direct mail. It's a forgotten thing because people are nervous. It's like coming on here. You're talking in front of cameras and loads of people, and it's out there. Picking up the phone is a forgotten thing because what we have to remember is people buy from people, and don't be afraid to pick up the phone, because you can engage with somebody on that. You can talk to another human being, and you'd have to talk to them as a human being rather than just think of them as another number and somebody else that I can be, taking a little bit more cash out of their back pocket and putting it in my own. Talk to them as a human being, because if you build up that relationship, well, you not only win that customer today, but it's going to sound like an Oxfam advert, but you also win them for life then potentially as well, because you build that relationship and that rapport. So, again, it's vitally important.
A worked example, then, where you've been able, by using these processes for an organisation or a group of people to retain customers. Have you got an example?
Oh, totally. So, the whole point is that I worked with a company once where they would put people into automation and they'd ping around different emails. So they click on different links, and then once they've clicked on a particular link, they then get a task to pick up the phone and speak to them. And then because they're engaging with them, and they're not saying, by the way, I saw that you were working late last night and you clicked that link at 5 to 11 or something. That's a little bit creepy sometimes. But by picking up the phone and actually talking to them and engaging with them, and then subtly dropping the hints that you might have a promotion on something, or you might be able to help them with other problems, all of a sudden you then do more business with them. And again, a lot can happen from a conversation. Because by you reminding them what you do, you not only open them to more services from you, but you also open their network. You open up their family, their friends, because when somebody's having a conversation saying, oh, by the way, I need this, I need media training, for instance, you go, oh, you know what? Have a chat with Steve, I'll put you in contact. So again, it's not just about the business that you can do with that existing customer, but it's the business you can do with that customer's wider network.
Is it also understanding about niches?
Totally.
Money is in the niches. I understand that you do a lot with mortgage brokers, don't you?
Yeah.
And it seems to me that if you go to a mortgage broker, let's just go through the process of this, they'll put you on a great deal for 2 years.
Yep.
So what happens at the end of the 2 years? Do they contact you? Will you remember who they are?
Yeah.
All of those kind of things. So what would you say to businesses? How do you identify your niche? What's the best way to approach it?
Identifying your niche can be one of the most scariest things that you can do in business, because it's almost like cutting your nose off to spite your face, because you're thinking, well, I could work with anyone. I can work with a one-man band down the road right the way up to a 20-man company in China. But you're not going to get consistent sales from that. You're not going to know what's working to bring that in. So identifying your niche, and it could just be a case that you go back to your database and you look at how many people you've got in a particular industry, because then you can go after those people. And by knowing your niche, it means that everything becomes very targeted, that you're not just doing this scattergun approach and hoping that something hits the target. You can be laser focused and actually bring more business in because you're talking to them in their language. You said about mortgage brokers, they use loads of jargon and things like that. And it's just talking to people in their language, and you're not throwing away money by pumping out random content that's there for clickbait, and you're getting 10,000 hits to your website on a monthly basis, but you're actually getting no leads in. There's no point in that.
We do live in a world of vanity by numbers, though, don't we?
Oh, we do. Oh, it's great. If you look at your Google Analytics account and you've got 10, 20, 30,000 people coming and reading your blogs each month, that's great. But then when you look at the flip side and you go, well, I've only had one person fill out a form, one person give me their details, and I've only got one person that can potentially convert. And I talk to people about splitting it into different sections. That if you bring 1,000 people to your website and you only convert 10% of them to actually complete, to go to a particular page, then you've got 100 people. You convert 10% of those to actually get them to give you their details, you've got 10 people. And if you're only converting 10% of those people into customers, you've got one customer. But if you change the numbers all wrong and you basically optimize the processes so that you convert in 30%, you're still spending the same amount of money because you're getting 1,000 people. But the magic number at the end changes and you end up with 27 customers then for the same process because you've optimized at different stages. And again, that's when you can pour more money into lead generation and things like that because it works, it's measurable, and that's one of the key things.
When you start at the very beginning of this, when we're talking, from sales to retention is the name of the program, but when you start at the very beginning, understanding what the customer is looking for, is the tone that we use, the linguistics that we use, the processes that we use. I mean, initially, a lot of people are going to be worried about having a list to retain.
Yeah.
So where do you start with that?
You have to speak to people in their language. If I went and if I stood up in front of a networking meeting in Birmingham and went, Borarasha, my Raduin Matthew in touch, it might be the right message, but I'm delivering it in the wrong language to that audience. But then if I go to West Wales, people would hopefully understand me. So you have to be on point with your message.
That was Welsh then,
That was Welsh, yeah.
Making certain. Multilingual, international.
Yeah, we'll look for the subtitles underneath. So you have to deliver the right message to the right audience. And again, it goes back to your niche and your targeting and your content then, because that makes winning them easier. It means retaining them is even easier as well then, because you're speaking their language. You're removing all the jargon stuff. And again, based upon industries, you look at mortgage brokers, for instance, let's face it, they use a lot of jargon, which scares off normal people. So therefore, you have to talk to people as people, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. Listen, an interesting program today. I mean, it's where do you start?
Yeah.
Is it okay if we take our viewers through the entire process from start to finish in just a moment? Is that okay?
Sure.
Where you start, building the list, the kind of things, the kind of actions you should be saying, the bit that holds their attention in the middle, and ongoing retention, because I think a lot of people think that once a sale is made,
they then move around back to the start.
So let's talk a little. We're going to talk more about that in just a few moments' time. My guest on today's show is Matthew Ruddle. He's a director from InTouch CRM, that's Customer Relationship Management, CRM, and we're going to be finding out more on how you can retain your customers from sale through to retention at the end of the process. It's lovely to have your company as always. Let's go back in time right now, shall we? A touch of the old Doctor Who's is what we're going to do. Secret to Big Business Success. It was on Business Connections Live 179. We had both Charles Bennett and Gordon Treadgold on the programme. They both specialise in the customer experience, which kind of ties in with all of this. They reckon that the customer experience is driven by innovation, and they explained to me on the programme their quick track process that businesses can apply to guarantee success. And they looked at the most valuable asset in the business, whoever or whatever that particular asset may be. They gave some really good advice on this particular programme. Charles was here in the studio, and Gordon was in his US office. How flash is that? A little bit of lip sync going on here because we were doing it over, I think it was over Skype at the time, a bit like you on your first programme.
Yeah, very true.
But it was a cracking show. Who we got first? So let's hear from what Charles said from Business Connections Live 179, Secrets to Big Business Success.
Hello, my name's Charles Bennett. I'm from Next 10, here from London. We're talking about the next generation of customer experience and what it means to organisations, where we're starting to move from the concept of outcome-based, from experience and the emotion attached with doing business with a customer to the outcomes that you go and create. Those outcomes are much more fundamental, and those outcomes are the reasons why organisations come back. There's companies such as Subway who do a great job at customer experience. They put it at the centre of everything they do. But for whatever reason, for some reason, customers are actually starting to move away. The last 2 to 3 years, revenues have started to drop. Restaurants have actually been closed. In consequence, you've got organisations which actually seem to be doing really bad customer experience. I used examples of Spirit Airlines. But the outcomes they seem to create, even if the experience is absolutely awful, has elevated companies like Spirit to be one of the most profitable airline brands in the world. So what we need to do is to be starting to think about the context of customer differently. At the moment, everybody's doing the customer experience in very much the same way. What we're trying to advocate is start to actually not only look at the experiential aspects of customer, but actually look at the outcome aspects of customer, and actually then work out what it means to your organisation, and then how you align it back into everything, absolutely everything, your structures, your processes, your performance indicators, your management, your employee engagement, absolutely every single aspect. If you start to get to do that, then you've got a chance to actually become one of the 1% of organisations who can dominate your markets.
Hi, my name's Gordon Treadgold, and I'm a leadership expert, speaker, coach and business consultant. I'm originally from Leeds, but I live now in sunny Florida. And we're talking today about customer experience and how companies can use that to leverage. And my view is that we're now moving towards a value economy where customers are looking for value, and we need to deliver value by providing a good service but also an outcome, and we need to be focused on making sure that we get the customer outcome right, and the better we can deliver that outcome, the more loyal that customer is going to be. And we can look at outcomes in a number of ways. We can just look at we've delivered the product, but what is it that the customer is actually going to use those products for? And I gave the example of Delray Beach Running Company, who they don't sell shoes anymore. They see themselves as a running club, and the outcome they help people with is they help people to complete either half marathons and marathons. And as they take people on that journey, they sell them running shoes, they sell them running equipment, they sell them the nutritional foods that they use, and what they're actually doing is now building a loyal customer base that comes back to them for every single running need that they have. Every one of their products is the same price as Amazon, but Amazon cannot offer the value and the outcome that Delray Beach Running Club does. And if you're a company that is just selling products and you're competing on price, sooner or later Amazon will eat your lunch. We're already seeing Amazon move into the office supply business, and within 1 year they've taken $1 billion worth of business away from companies like Staples and Office Depot. So if you're focused on delivering products and you're competing on cost, then you need to move away from that and start looking at giving value to your customers. And this comes from outcome and also customer service. And if you can deliver both, you're going to create loyal advocates.
Well, you're going to create loyal advocates, that's what he's saying. So there's some really good hints there that fit in really well with today's programme. If you want to watch the entire show, you can go back. This is Business Connections Live 179. If you go to the website at businessconnectionslive.com, if you go to the second tab on the menu, there's a drop down and it shows you all the archive programs that go back over 4 years. Just go to that web address there, businessconnectionslive.com. You'll find that program. Business Connections Live 179, Secrets to Big Business Success. And the guest speakers on that particular show, Gordon Treadgold and Charles Bennett, were on the program. And it was a really, really interesting program. You're watching Business Connections Live. Steve Hyland with you here. It's great to have your company. My guest in the studio is Matthew Ruddle. He's a director from InTouch CRM. It's a UK-based automation sales customer retention system. It's quite advanced, actually. If you haven't heard about it, do check it out. You get a free trial if you want to find out more about the actual software. I mean, it's a terrific tool. If you go to their website, you'll find all sorts of things there. What InTouch has to offer about InTouch success stories, the prices to the packages as well. You can request a demo from it too about them. But the thing that really struck me when I was looking at it, apart from the figures, of course, which were incredible, is the people who are using it. And you can see that, you know, some big names are there. Royal United Hospital Bath, Rugby World Cup, PCA, Z Group, and a whole load more. It's a terrific system. What I like about InTouch CRM is it's a total package. What tends to happen when you're looking at CRM systems, and there are a lot out there to choose from, you may be using something like MailChimp, what's the other one, Aweber, which is the two introductory ones, which are really no more than autoresponders. But as you start to add automation to it, then you'll find that these other companies like Infusionsoft, ActiveCampaign and people like that, they will charge you additional for things like the sales pipeline, for instance. Oh, you want a sales pipeline, do you? Well, that's going to cost you a little bit more. You want to email to this number of people. And this is a really good alternative. It's UK-based, UK support, and you will actually get a lot of support from people. The biggest problem with all of this, before we go through the process, is that people will get it, they'll pay you the money,
Yep.
and then they'll do nothing with it.
Yep.
Can you help them?
Of course. We've got all the support that they need, you know, from a full support suite to videos to webinars to even, you know, picking up the phone and speaking to us. You know, that still happens. So we're more than happy to talk to people and, you know, help them, because at the end of the day, it's in our interest to get people to use the system, because the more success that they see, well, the more likely they are to recommend us and come back to us. And again, the more they grow their business, the more they'll grow their number of users and things like that. So it's a very symbiotic.
Symbiotic, that's a great
symbiotic,
word.
yeah. It'll be all right on the night. Symbiotic kind of relationship of, you know, we want the system to work for customers, because when it works, it'll save them time and it'll make them money.
If somebody was to come to you and
Yep.
they feel they don't have the time, and this is, you know, all the gear and no idea,
Yep.
and they come to you and you go, look, we're a car hire company, bad example, but we're a flower shop or something like that. But we don't have the time or the expertise to actually write the sales process, the automation. Can you do that for them?
Totally, and that's what I spend a lot of my time doing, is actually working with customers one-to-one to not only understand their business, but their customers, and then putting these processes in place for them. So, you know, you said a florist. Well, look at, you know, dare I say it, Interflora. There are other florists available, but their processes are fantastic. Every time you buy a bunch of flowers, they ask you, why are you buying this bunch of flowers? Is it for, you know, your mum's birthday? Is it for your wife's birthday? Is it an anniversary? Something like that. And then they'll start to send you emails in the run-up to that saying, don't forget. So, you know, for every husband out there, there's no
That's the one. That's going to remind you, isn't it?
Yeah, for not buying flowers on your wife's birthday. You know, they'll send you an email and say, don't forget, a year ago you bought some flowers for your wife. Do you want to buy them again? And again, it's little things like that's as simple as your retention process needs to be. It's just reminding somebody that they've done something with you so they come back and do it again. Because they haven't had to chase me. They haven't had to kind of find me as a new customer. They've just had to send me a quick little email or a quick little prompt to go, yes, I'll go back to them. And again, that's what a lot of people are missing. But that's what we'll help people with.
Well, in that case then, let's go from A to Z.
Sure.
Then. Let's work our way through the entire process. If a new customer turns up at you, where do they start? What's the first thing that they need to do? So obviously what they're looking to do is they're looking to get sales.
Yep.
I take it this can help, but it's not the thing that's going to make the sale. You're still going to make the sale.
Yeah, there's
where do we
no
start?
silver bullet in business, unfortunately. We'd all love to find that. So the first thing is if you take control of the system, then you can put your database in there. So this is where you can load your business cards in, your spreadsheets, all of that, because that data becomes your foundation. The more you put in, the more you can actually use, and the more it'll work for you then.
Is there an optimum number?
No, but it is an optimum quality. So therefore, again, it goes back to what we were talking about, knowing your niche customers and things like that, because there's no point in having a database of millions of people if not even a quarter of them are your ideal customer. All you're going to do is waste a lot of time and energy communicating with people that will never ever buy from you, or they'll buy from you, but it'll be once in a blue moon. So therefore, having a good quality list, and again, this is where people can fall down, because they'll go out and try and buy data and fast forward these steps. But people have to get to know you first. So having a quality list in the system is key, and then you can start to work out your processes. And again, it's working out what's worked for you in the past. It can be as simple as that, of going, well, how did we win that piece of business previously? And by knowing that, you can put steps in place, whether those are email steps, whether those are simple tasks for you to pick up the phone and remind them. A text message, something completely different, because let's face it, when we were talking earlier, Linda said, came back from holiday and has got hundreds of emails, but actually you look at a text message straight away, because it's instant. So again, being slightly different and thinking outside the box, putting that in place and then measuring it. So not just putting something in place for the sake of it, but actually being able to measure it, seeing what's working, whether people are actually opening the emails, responding to these things, because then you can revisit it, you can tweak it. And that's, again, a key thing, is not just resting on your laurels and ticking a box and saying, well, I've done that, so therefore it's going to work for me. No, go back to it, revisit it, and tweak it. And again, people sometimes struggle for content to kind of flesh out those messages. Look at their blogs. You know, if they put content out there, then recycle some of the blogs. We were talking earlier, again, and saying that, you know, what you sent me 2 months ago, I'm not necessarily going to remember now, so therefore don't be afraid to kind of recycle some of these things, but tweak some of the word in.
It's interesting, because Gordon Treadgold, who we just looked at just a moment or so ago, he does a lot of posting to LinkedIn, and in fact, many weeks he'll do a post a day.
Yeah.
And I asked him, where do you get all that content from? And he said, well, what I do is I start with the first story, which will be my perspective of it, and then I write it from different perspectives. I write it from the customer's perspective. I then write the same information again from another perspective, and by doing that, it gives me the content. And of course, the more you write, the more chances are that people are going to read it.
Totally.
So really, with you know, do they have to be long form? Because there was the day of the long form emails, the sales email. Is it just a couple of words just to bring your name up? And do you need too many questions now, but do you need graphics? How important is the title?
You've got to grab somebody's attention, and there is always a debate over long form and short form. So short form is obviously the short email, long form is almost like War and Peace in an email. Unfortunately, we don't have a great attention span these days, and when we're bombarded with emails left, right and centre, you have to stand out. So therefore, a graphic could be great, but it's also the words that you use. I think when I was originally on here, almost 4 years ago, I can't remember the guy's name, I think it was Steve someone, but he was talking about the words that you use in a lot of things.
Steve Bridger, that's
the one, better memory than me. So he was talking about the words that you use, and that is totally key, because it's the subject line. So how are you going to engage with somebody when you've got a short line of 25, 35 characters to engage with them, to get them to open your email? Then it's the headline in the email and the actual general content as well. So things like personalization comes into it as well, because again, you're talking to a person. So what are you more likely to respond to? Something that says, hi Steve, or something says, hi, and they don't know you. Straight away you're going to switch off. So you've got to grab people's attention straight away. Personally, I'm more of a fan of short form content, because I think that you give somebody a taster. You give them that little taster and just say, here's a little snippet, but if you want to read more, then come to my LinkedIn page or come to my page on my website, where there's other opportunities to engage with them, other call to actions to get them to either pick up the phone or register an inquiry that then triggers something else off for you.
And if they respond to that, then of course within your software you can send a message to yourself that says maybe this would be a good time to pick the phone up because they're relatively warm.
Exactly. So, tracking that click, either just seeing the stats or even having that process set up that says Steve has clicked this link in an email. Maybe you want to give them a call in the next hour or so, just so it's a coincidental thing. And again,
not a kind of a spooky, creepy thing.
No, I'm not in the bushes with the binoculars waiting for you to open that email. It's just that simple little trick of going, hi, I wanted to check whether you got my email and whether you found it useful. Just talking to somebody and just starting that conversation could lead down to the path of gold. And again, what business doesn't want a bit more money in their back pocket?
So we work our way down. We have a sequence of emails. The optimum number of emails that you would send, or is it just a continuous stream that maybe repeats itself over a period of time?
Yeah.
Is that something you do and advocate?
Yeah, I would say you want something that lasts long enough. You don't want to just kind of be seen as a smash and grab merchant. And I've sat through conferences where people have said you should deliver 30 emails over the course of 28 days and completely bombard people and saturate their inbox with your messages. Personally, again, putting myself in the customer's shoes, that would turn me off to it. So therefore, having something that's more spread out and again, giving people time, because like you said...
So typically then, an example would be from you. If you were doing it, what would your suggestion be?
If for instance, my networking one, so that would be quite heavily loaded up front. So over the first couple of days and the first couple of weeks, I'll drop a few emails every couple of days to you, and then it'll slowly get lighter as well. And it'll drop into the general campaign that I've got set up that will last for probably 6 to 9 months, really, just to kind of just keep in contact, because you may not resonate with something today, but actually you may see some keywords later on that all of a sudden you're in a more receptive mood. And it may actually trigger something with you that, if I was selling cars, for instance, you may go, well, I've just bought a new car. But in 12 months' time or 2 years' time, if I then drop you something down and say, how about a new car? You might go, yeah, I've had it for a while now. Let's have a conversation. So you've got to try different things on different days. And again, just having something there that you can measure. And again, there's something I always say to people, it's about measuring things, because otherwise there's no point in putting something in place if you can't measure it.
Just shortcut very quickly for us. Is there an optimum day?
Again, it depends on your market. It sounds like I'm being a politician and dodging the question, because the traditional thing said Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays are better days for people, because Mondays they're picking up all the stuff from the weekend. Friday they don't really want to work and they want to get to the weekend, and Saturday and Sunday, unless they're a business owner, they're not really engaged with it. It depends on your market space, and again, being different, because you could fire them down something that'll land 9 o'clock on Monday morning, and it might be the first thing they open. They're fresh, they're looking at what's new, so it might hit them better. So knowing your market and knowing your niche will dictate everything about that.
More to come in just a few moments' time from Matthew Ruddle. He is a director from InTouch CRM. Make converting prospects into customers a simple task is one of their slogans that they use on their website. More from Matthew in just a few moments' time. Hope you've enjoyed today's program. I hope it's encouraged you to maybe perhaps think about implementing something like this. Some people say it's a bit like employing somebody else, but without the cost or the expense of having somebody permanently on your team. This automation, as long as you measure it and see how well it is working, will actually help you. We're going to talk about the process post-sales, the retention process. Here we're tickling our prospects at the moment. We're keeping in mind so that we're going to be top of the list perhaps when they actually want to buy. But what's the process post the sale? Do you just go, yep, got the sale, time to walk away? More from Matthew in just a few moments' time. Can I thank you very much indeed, all the people that are downloading the promo course. The promo is available right across the board. You can watch it live each and every Monday. You can watch it on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope. It goes everywhere live. And then after the program, it is available on the likes of Stitcher and Blueberry and a whole host of other podcast platforms, very shortly to be on Spotify, in fact, as well. That's going to be quite exciting. So all sorts of things taking place at the moment as far as the program is concerned, and thank you very much. But the big place where we get a load of downloads, apart from Roku, of course, which is the North American sort of plug-in TV thingamajigsy, is iTunes. People downloading the program on iTunes. Thousands of you are doing that each and every week. It's dead easy to do it if you haven't done it yet. We'd love you to download the program, maybe set it up so that you're downloading it on a regular basis, but more importantly, also leaving terrific reviews. And that is easy to do. All you've got to do is go into your account and then you can view the program within your iTunes account. You'll find all the shows there, all listed. There's a tab that says ratings and reviews. Once you click on the ratings and reviews, that'll take you to another tab that says write a review and leave a star review too. So yes, Matthew Ruddle was absolutely fantastic. Going to get an automation system, 5 stars for the advice. And what will happen then is the algorithm in the future will then recommend the program to other people who are watching similar programs on iTunes and downloading them. So that's a big help for us because it grows the audience, and from our point of view, that is the bit where there are vanity in numbers. See, you talk to people will say, well, how many people watch? And if you went 4 and you went, really not interested in 4, yep. But one of them's the Prime Minister, the other one's the Queen, and so on. All of a sudden, you know, Alan Sugar, would that make you want to watch? Alan Sugar, you know, all of a sudden it's work, you know, what's his name, Jones from the Dragon's Den, was it? Peter Jones. If those 4 people were watching, you'd go, do you know what, that's worth doing for 4 people. And this really takes us back to what Matthew was saying about the quality of your list. You may well have thousands of people on your list, but if it's only 10 of those people that are actually worth marketing to, well, why don't you supermarket to them, give them the information they really want, absolutely narrow cast to them, target them specifically, so that you actually get your revenue from those kind of people. Am I right or am I wrong? I'm not certain.
Yeah, you still want to communicate with everybody because they've signed up for something. But yeah, you want to target the people that are more receptive. Put them into a more sped up campaign, for instance, because they're showing you signs of life. They're engaging with you.
We like life. Well, they're breathing. They're breathing and moving.
And hopefully they've got money in their back pocket as well.
Okay, we talked earlier on about the process. We've warmed our customers up. We're collecting names and we're starting to communicate with them. I know this is truly as long as a piece of string and you've tried different things, but what is, do you think, the optimum number of emails a month? Is it 1 a day? Is it 1 every 2 days? Is it 1 a week? Is it once a month? People really, they pontificate about the number of times that they connect with somebody or talk to somebody.
Personally, I think 1 email a week on a regular basis. So that doesn't mean to send it 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, then the following week is 10 o'clock in the evening on a Thursday and so forth. That regular communication really does have a big impact on things. And again, otherwise it has that approach of going, we haven't sent anything this week, let's just get something out. So having that regular communication is absolutely key because people look out for it. When we've done things in the past, people have said to us, I know exactly what day and what time it is because I received a communication from you guys, because they've been receiving it for months on end. So think on that basis that people will look out for it. They may not read it straight away, but they'll save it. They'll
Is it important that the content in there is useful?
Totally. If the content's not useful, then there's no point in sending it because all you're doing is wasting your time and theirs. So that's why the message is so important, that you have to talk to them as people on the subject matter that they actually wanted. If somebody signs up to us, for instance, and we start sending them out about car prices, well, it's chalk and cheese. It doesn't, what we're sending out doesn't match what people have come to us originally for. So therefore all they're going to do is unsubscribe, they're going to switch off. So the moment we do start sending them something that is of value, that is what they wanted, they're already off our list because they've unsubscribed, because we haven't communicated with them in the right way, with the right messages that resonate with them.
It's very interesting because I heard somebody speaking a couple of weeks back, and what they said, if you send out an email to somebody with 5 key tips on it, maybe some of the stuff that you're sending out, actually they already know. They already feel that they know that. And in fact, what you're doing is that you are supporting their conclusion. You're saying to them, actually, what you're doing at the moment within your business is indeed right.
Yeah.
So, so even some of the most basic communications, they'll do a number of different jobs in a number of different ways. Okay, we've made the sale.
Yep.
What do we do to retain that customer?
First thing is communicate with them. How many businesses have even you experienced where you've made a sale, you've purchased from them, and then it's as if they've disappeared off the face of the earth. They don't talk to you because they're focusing on the new business. So the first thing is communicate with people. Now, I often talk to people about the kind of 3 phases of this, is that you have the honeymoon period. You know, when you bought that new car and you're flipping all the buttons and you're pressing everything in there, you know, you're excited about it. Well, that's your opportunity to say thank you for the purchase. It's your opportunity to get feedback. So we're just saying there about feedback on the YouTube videos. iTunes. So asking for feedback then, because people are receptive to it, which means that it not only helps with the new sales, but it also gets them to think about why they bought from you and tell you why they bought from you. You can also then say, I've got a referral scheme or something like that. So again, it's your opportunity to ask them to spread the word about you. Then you have the wilderness. So once the honeymoon period's over and it's, well, what do I say? What do I talk about? Talk about things that are happening in the world that are relevant to them. So for mortgage brokers, for instance, you know, when the budgets come out, what impact does that have on my mortgage? Does it have an impact? When Brexit, you know, works itself out, I know it's a bit of a dirty word at the moment, but what impact does that have?
Did you just say the B word, by the way?
I did. I'll pay a fine later.
You said the B word. No warning. It was just out of the blue there.
I know. We'll beep it later. But again, you know, these are all your excuses to communicate, and communication is absolutely key. I said it earlier. It's your responsibility to remind the customer that you still exist. And let's face it, when GDPR came out, we had people that decided to walk away from their businesses because GDPR scared them so much, they just didn't want anything to do with it. So if somebody comes back to them in 6 months' time, they're not there. So you have to communicate with people to remind them that you are there, that you provided them a fantastic service, and remind them why they actually bought from you. And then you have the kind of third phase, is where you start to warm people up to buy more services from you, whether it's a renewal of a subscription or whether it's just buying a new product and an upgrade from you. So communicate is absolutely key.
We always say to our clients, so I suppose what you're saying is it's going to give you more time if you do automate that kind of process.
Totally.
Potentially, I suppose it's going to be more money. What kind of success stories have you seen when it comes to business growth?
Well, seen massive ones where people have just actually put a process in place and they've actually then picked up the phone. So all these potential deals that they've had that they haven't really followed up on, they've only made one phone call, for instance, that if you put a process in place, and I did this with one company, where they ended up picking up the phone, speaking to people multiple times, because any good salesperson will tell you it's 6 to 10 touch points to actually convert a sale, because they actually had a process in place that gave them the tasks, that gave them the nudge to say, call Steve about buying a new bathroom, for instance. I mean, this one customer in 10 weeks did £120,000 worth of business. Just because there was a process in place that nudged them to pick up the phone and speak to people. That's huge.
Is there a linguistic process? Is there words that you can use? What's the most powerful call to action you've seen? I mean, what's the one? Is it leaving a question slightly open? What is it? What's the trick? Yeah,
I mean, without being a sales trainer myself, you always want to ask open-ended questions, and then obviously ask the kind of killer close questions. Why wouldn't you buy this today? What's stopping you? Just again, knowing your customers dictates what you're going to say to them. Again, very political answer there, but again, you have to know your customer. You have to get under their skin to really understand what it is that they're looking for. What's the problem that you're going to solve for them, and that'll lead to the question.
Finally,
sure.
If you're going to get something like this, if you're going to get a system, we'll just go back to the web page one more time, if we may. If you were to sign up with, should we say, InTouch CRM or one of the others, I mean, the Active Campaigns, the Infusionsofts, or whatever, who are comparable. The nice thing about you, of course, you're UK, and they're all American, aren't they?
Yep.
So it's UK support and all of that. But how quickly do you think businesses, if they do implement some of the ideas that you have said today, will they see something happening within their business?
as long as you implement it, because that's the key thing, is implementation. Buying a piece of software off the shelf and never using it is never going to have an impact. But providing you actually implement it, you could start to see things happen within weeks, days. We did something with one customer where they just sent out text messages. They sent out 26 targeted text messages, and amongst the replies were "Welcome to the 21st century," but then they brought people back in store, and then they made £600. Well, it didn't cost them £600 to have the system and to do those text messages, but they brought people back, they communicated with people, and that was on the very first message. So, yeah, if you know who you're talking to with a really clear message, then it can have a very good impact for you very quickly.
This has been a fascinating show. Matthew Ruddle, director from InTouch CRM, has been in the studio today. We've been talking about customer retention, well, from sale to retention, the customer journey, and what you can do. It's kind of drifted into the world of CRM systems and automation. It's been a fascinating insight. As I said, if you do want to find out more, Matthew has also written, is it your ebook that gives you the scripts, or is that somebody else's?
It is actually mine, and it's available on the website as well.
If you go to their website, I'll put a link on the show page for it as well, but you can download. And what Matthew has done is he's written how many scripts?
There are 50 emails in this
50
book.
emails, and you can customize them, you can change them, you can chop them around. I think one of the biggest resistances to doing any of this is not having the scripts available when you start. You feel like you're forever reinventing the wheel. So Matthew gives you a little bit of help when it comes to actually doing that. We ask all our guests to give the key takeaways from the program at the end of each and every show. We ask you to look straight down camera number 4, say who you are, where you're from, and to give us those key takeaways. The airways, for as long as you need them to be, are all yours.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Matt Ruddle from InTouch CRM, and the key takeaways from today's show are: implement a process for your sales side as well as your customer retention side, because the moment you do that, things become measurable. You can then change it and you can get success, and you know what works and what doesn't work. So look after your new sales as well as looking after your customers, and it can make a massive difference to your business.
Absolutely fantastic. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the program. Thank you very much indeed for watching. And don't forget, Business Connections Live. We're back live again next Monday at midday. What we've got coming up on future programs: Deborah Hume's going to be joining us from Minerva Engagement. Louise Punter is going to be on the show as well. She's the CEO of the Surrey Chamber of Commerce. We've got a whole host of other guests. In fact, we're completely booked up now into the new year, so that's fantastic. There are also sponsorship opportunities, and if you'd like a program just like this one, why not get in touch with us here at Business Connections Live. Don't forget, you can also go to LinkedIn. You can connect with us there, also Facebook as well. And our media training is waiting to make certain you don't make a complete fool of yourself in front of the camera. Till we do it all again next Monday, from me, Steve Hyland, and Matthew Ruddle. Have a great week. Bye for now. Bye-bye.